Hi, I'm Jim Huffman, and welcome to the Shopify Growth Show, where we dive into what's actually working to scale Shopify brands. Hey, running an e-commerce store is tough, but you don't have to do it alone. Each episode, I talk to founders who've grown from idea to 7 or 8 figures, plus experts who share what's driving real results. And we're in the game too. My Shopify growth agency, GrowthHit, acquired its own brand, Neat Apparel, and we're pulling back the curtain to show what's really working as we scale the business. Want the latest Shopify tactics and insights delivered straight to your inbox? Subscribe to the Shopify Growth Insider by GrowthHit. Every week, we break down 5 top growth tactics for Shopify and brands. Find the link in episode notes below, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Okay, on the podcast today, we have someone I've been wanting to chat with for a while because I've been stalking his brand for numerous years, using it in case studies whenever we're doing some marketing, teaching, and stuff. But we have Eric Bandholz, who is the co-founder of Beardbrand, and he also has a really great podcast you should check out called E-commerce Conversations. But Eric, welcome to the podcast.
What is going on, Jim? How you doing?
I'm good, man. It's Friday. We get to chat. So, no, man, I'm excited to get into it. But you said you're in Austin right now. It's a little hot, right? In
Yeah,
June.
well, that doesn't really narrow down what time of the year it is. It's pretty much always hot.
Yeah, I just went on a jog in the rain, so I'm clearly in Seattle, but that's okay. You got to do it. Whenever I moved out here, like I had an umbrella, and it's like, no, Seattleites don't have umbrellas. You just have rain jackets, and you deal with it. So that's the move.
Yeah, you're
Um,
actually it's just surprising you're not wearing a black jacket or something, because every time I went to Seattle, that's like the uniform there.
oh, absolutely. It's like, oh, what'd you go with, right? Do you have like the Patagonia, the North Face, but yeah, your black uniform. So yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, you've done a lot that I'm excited to get into because we have a growth marketing agency. We love D2C and e-commerce, and you've got a really compelling story. Like you've created a category, you've created a following, you've built like a massive brand, you've been on Shark Tank, and you've done it without raising any money. So we're going to get into that, but I'm always interested. Like, obviously, I only know you as the guy behind Beardbrand, but can you tell me a little bit more about your path before starting this? Like what kind of led up to this? Because I'm always interested to see the seeds of a sprouting founder that were shown early on.
Yeah, I mean, like if you want to talk about my entrepreneurial story, it really could go all the way back to grade school, elementary school, when I remember raiding my mom's pantry for just like different powders, and we repackaged those powders into straws and taped off the ends of the straws and resold them as me and my business partner. My business partner, his name was CP, and then my name was Eric, so we called them C&E sticks, and we sold them to our classmates in elementary school, and then found out probably didn't like selling as much as like the idea of starting businesses, so we just liquidated them all to one person, and that was kind of the end of that. But I always had like
Well,
this
actually,
knack
that's
for.
great margins on that, right? It's
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
inventory cost was nothing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like the scalability might be a little challenging, but your audience is only a couple of classmates. But I've always had this like a couple things like um, I mean, you could probably boil it down to one. I like being in control. Subsequently, because I like being in control, I don't like working for people. Um, uh, I can work well enough, and I'm not disruptive in the office or anything, but I like being on my own vision. And then so kind of like I'm one of the few guys in college, one of the few people who went to college and is actually doing what they went to college for. Like I was a double major in marketing and management with a focus in management and entrepreneurship, and then my minor was retail. So uh, kind of like a retail
You nailed it.
entrepreneur. I nailed it. I nailed it. Now I never like when I went to college, I didn't imagine like being a e-commerce owner. I mean, this was 2003 that I graduated. E-commerce didn't really exist at that time, or if it did, it cost $40,000 to build a website, and there were no Shopify options. So I had, I worked for the man. I was kind of like a salesperson and varying roles graphic design company or a printing company, a financial advisor. And then I had a couple of like failed businesses along the way. I was tried to do executive recruiting with my dad's business and never got a placement, so that was not very successful. But to be fair, that was 2008, so it was not a time where a lot of people were hiring.
I don't think
And then
anybody got a placement that year, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was definitely hard times. Hard times were had in the Bandholz family. And then my first e-commerce business was called Wakamo, Wakomo, and I was selling vinyl wall graphics because there's this company called like Blick, and they were selling it, and I think that was kind of like my early dipping my toe into entrepreneurship was like finding something that was cool that someone else was doing it and then just kind of quote unquote copying them for lack of better terms. Uh, and of course, when that's your strategy, you don't really have passion for it and you don't really do it. So I think I sold two vinyl wall graphics and then, that was it. Let it scale down. I built that website on Magento and this was probably like 2008. Um, and then Beardbrand. Beardbrand was kind of like the one that finally worked.
Yeah, for me, I'm always when people do their first startup or business and they're going for the moon, I'm almost a little nervous because I mean, similar to you, I did some half-baked things that I wouldn't even call them businesses because they failed out so much, but that like allowed me to get to the next thing and the next thing that got a little bit better and a little bit better. But I think you just have to get those reps, right, to build up. I'm the people that the first thing they do out of the gate is life changing. I don't know how they pull it off because I for me, I have to have experience to inform how I do like what I'm going to do with business.
Yeah, I mean, I would. First of all, I want to correct myself. That it was 2010 that I tried the vinyl wall graphic business. But really, what was holding me back, I can attribute about 10 years of my professional career being held back because of public schools and really this expectation that if you just do what you're told, you will find success in life. And it's like if you just build a master plan this way and you do these things, you will find success. So I was taught to seek, the blueprint. I was like in kind of in my mind, like that's how I was thinking. It's like, okay, I because I can do a good job. I'm a smart person. I'm a hard worker. I'll do whatever it takes to be successful. Just show me what to do. I'll do it. And then it wasn't until really, I guess, with Beardbrand that I realized that is the worst kind of thinking that you can have for entrepreneurship. The way you are successful in entrepreneurship is you have to say, I need to find problems. I need to prioritize those problems really good. And then I need to focus on the top of the list and go down from there. And if you don't like problems and you don't like finding problems or solving problems, you should not be an entrepreneur. You should just like work for the man and do whatever you do well. Um, but and when I look at hiring talent as well, like very few candidates have that ability to just be like, I'm going to find a problem and I'm going to work on that problem and I'm going to solve that problem.
Literally before we got on this call, I was listing my problems I have to tackle today. But I totally agree because all businesses is problems. People are hiring you to get your product or service that solves a problem. And even as you grow, you have growing pains. It doesn't get easier. So you have to kind of embrace that. And I like how whenever you're hiring for that, how do you weed that out? Because I can see some amazing job simulations and work, but it's like how do you simulate like do simulations around grit and oh here's something really hard where we only know 40% of the way to get there, but go figure it out. Like have you had success and like candidates that can show that or not show that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took us a really long time to figure out how to hire talent and make sure we're getting the right people at Beardbrand. I want to be clear, like the type of people who are great at doing things that they're told, it is needed in society, and they can bring a lot of value. So, like, if that is your personality and that's what you like to do, there's tons of opportunities and great ways to build a life. So, I don't want it to seem that I'm bashing people who work like that or think like that. It's not a good or bad thing. Just kind of like for what we need at Beardbrand. Before I get into like how we hire people, I also want to like double up and kind of say like problems, like the valuation of your business is essentially the amount of problems and the difficulty of solving those problems is how your business is valued. Like how difficult is it for someone to solve these problems rather than just buying it from you? It is really how a lot of people should look at it when they probably don't think of it that way. But anyways, like hiring people. So we rolled out the method called top grading probably about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and ever since then we feel pretty confident that we're bringing in the right people. We have a 9 step process. It's really, the whole like saying, hire slowly and fire quickly. It's true, but the reason you're hiring slowly is because you're being as thorough as possible with the hiring process. So I'll quickly walk through our process starts with first you need to have the most compelling job description that you could ever imagine. You want to get as many people as possible applying for the job. Like you are at an advantage the more candidates you have. So post it on all the job boards. Find the very like niche specific job boards. Like if you're hiring a video editor, there's like video specific job boards. Indeed is not going to get you the same talent as that videographer, video editor job board will. So post on the relevant posts, make the job seem as cool as heck. Like make it seem like the most impressive thing. Now, in my opinion, there's different kinds of cool. There's like work cool, and then there's like benefit cool. I would not recommend selling the benefits of the company because you're going to attract people who want benefits. They want the bean bags and the naps in the office and whatever. So I would focus on uh, getting them in there. And then within the job description, we always point out that we are going to do reference checks. And we will do reference checks at the end. And what you're doing by letting people know that you're calling their past employers or past bosses is that you're really weeding out like the C and the D candidates, those who don't have a good reference. There's a lot of people who leave jobs for a lot of different reasons, but they're still able to maintain that cordial environment. So it comes in. So the first process is screening the candidates, and then moving relevant candidates to the next step, which we call our core values email. We do two things. We ask them to do a short paragraph on what our three core values, freedom, hunger, and trust, mean to them. And we also ask them to take a typing test. So this is going to show really quickly their communication skills. You want to have an over preference for people who can communicate in your office at a higher level than maybe their skills, because they can learn skills, but most people, if they can't communicate, I don't know if you can help someone who can't communicate. And then typing test just shows their level of competency working on a computer. We don't really have like baselines or expectations, but it does kind of set the expectation. If you're going to be customer service replying to tickets all day and you can only type 20 words per minute, it's just logically speaking, you're not going to be able to handle as many tickets as someone who can type at 65 words per minute. So some jobs are more important to have a higher typing speed. So depending on how they do that, we'll move them forward to our skills test, and we have an online skills test that's more like personality driven, and then also kind of like just general intelligence, and then we bring them in for a specific skills test where we watch them perform. So it could be replying to customer service tickets, not live ones, but we'll have like preset ones that all the candidates will do the same one, how they prioritize it, how they solve it. Or like if we bring in a graphic designer, we'll actually watch them design and sit behind them. It's the most awkward thing ever, but you can really quickly see who's comfortable on the programs and who's not. So you're able to do that, and then if that goes well, what we do is our top grading interview. And the top grading interview is when we talk about their previous 3 jobs. We ask the same 10 questions over and over again. Like one of my favorite questions is, when we call up your boss, how are they going to describe you? So we ask that question for their 3 previous jobs. And what we're looking for is any kind of trends. So um, if each of the boss says, oh, they're late, but, funny or whatever, then you're like, well, this person's going to be late. And then the other thing is the other question I really like is, what is the one thing that your boss can do to improve upon? So when they describe their boss, you're also looking for themes. It's like if every boss is a terrible communicator, then probably the candidate's a terrible communicator. Or if every boss somehow has drama around them, then probably the drama is around there. So like usually a good candidate is going to have like, this person was really bad about, replying to emails, and this person was really bad about handling stress. And, you'll see like things that are authentic. And then from there, if that looks good, we do, of course I missed a step, but from there we would do a reference check with the people and then make an offer. But I wanted to say, like, before all this starts, after the uh, core values email, we do a phone screen where we tell them the expectations for the job. Like, this job was going to be in office, 5 days a week from these times, and the salary for this is going to be this rate. Is that okay? And make sure there's like no like we don't go through this whole 9-step process, and at the end of it you're like, oh well, I wanted to get paid more, or oh, I want to work remote. If they do that, they're automatically disqualified because we talked about it very upfront. And I'm like an upfront transparent guy. Like, we make our payments based on 75th percentile. So we're going to pay more than, if there's 4 companies, we'll be the second highest paying company. um, so I feel pretty fair in the marketplace, that we're competitive. And if somebody doesn't agree with it, that's fine. I don't want to waste their time, and I don't want to waste our time. So those are our ways to really know and understand what the candidate is really going to be like when they start working. And then we only hire people if we're excited and we we can't wait for them to start working. If we have this mentality of like, oh well, we could always fire them down the road, or oh, we could do this or that. No, because like what's going to happen is you're going to end up firing them down the road. And you just got to figure out a different way to solve that pain point that you have, rather than bringing in someone who's not the right fit.
That's such good advice because you hit on some things I want to call out, like getting aligned with the core values. Like we finally established ours. We did this thing like EOS, and it transformed everything because it quickly shows you, oh wow, they are the right fit or not. And I love doing the salary up front, and those job simulations are everything because they could be great on the call, but you've got to like simulate what it's like to work with them. If not, you're like, oh my gosh, this does not work out. Like we at a previous startup, we had this sales guy who was great at sales, but then we realized he literally didn't know how to work a computer, and we're like, wow, that was a big mistake. But what one thing on the firing, I struggle with that. Like I'm in this group called EO, and a guy gave some advice that was harsh, but like was really good. And it's like the first time you're thinking of firing somebody, that's when you should probably be parting ways. And you're exactly right. It's like hire slow, but fire fast. You hear that advice, but for me, it can be the hardest to take on, right? And what I mean, so one thing like I've heard you talk about your culture really well, and as we get into that, like I want to frame it because whenever you're starting something, you're probably not doing it with like, oh, these are the 3 core values I have in mind. Can you kind of go back to how did you even come up with this idea for Beardbrand? What are the early days of it?
Yeah. I also wanted to share. I have a rule for when to fire someone, and it's when I have a dream with them in it. That's a negative dream. The next day they're getting fired. Like once you seep into like my, because the dreams are helping you prepare for that the bad things that they're ultimately going to do. So like that's kind of a rule for me. If I ever have a negative dream about a team member, then
I'll take that rule. I agree. Yeah. So you just wake up and just immediate fire through email. Got it. Perfect.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like maybe there's a little bit of planning or expectations, depending on their role. But yeah, I mean, so like going back to like the kind of like the starting story of Beardbrand, I have this little moleskin journal that I wrote down a list of the things like I was not happy in my career. I was kind of aimless. I had like all these projects going on. I didn't really know what I did. So I just like wrote down the things that I love. And, like freedom came up, and like liberty, and kind of a libertarian person. Um, and then, just like, I like cars. I like, it was just like a list of things that I liked, design and fashion and so like I've always kind of like I've known who I am, right? I've been self aware, and it was trying to find like it's really like trying to find. I was like a plug, and all these sockets were like European style or Japanese style and I just had to find that right plug. And once I did, all the energy would be flowing. And with the beard brand, like what had happened is I was a financial advisor, and I love elements of that job, but I hated working at that job. I hated one of the things about working in the job was this expectation that you looked and acted a certain way, which was not a way that I wanted to act. And dress was like I wanted to have facial hair, and there was kind of like back in um, 2010 and 11, there was the expectation you don't wear facial hair in a professional environment. So I couldn't stand working there. I ended up just like quitting, and I grew my beard out. As I grew my beard out, um, I was trying to start up like a marketing company, and this is the whole like. I look back on like my ego and my hubris of the ability that I could sell marketing services, having never really been a successful marketer before. But I digress. So, anyways, like I would still go to networking events and grow out this big beard, and people would call me ZZ Top and Duck Dynasty and Grizzly Adams, and those are all like super rad dudes who are super cool beardsmen, but they weren't guys that I really resonated with. Like these hands were made for keyboards; they weren't made for axes. And so I started to realize that like uh, you can grow a beard and you can be a salesperson, an entrepreneur, a doctor, a lawyer. Like it's like humanity, like evolutionarily speaking, we grow beards for reasons, and it's uh, kind of odd that we just choose to shave them off. Now, there's certainly people who enjoy shaving and the look of a shaved face, and I'm not against that. But I'm more in favor of is just like being yourself and showing the world who you want to be, whether that's beard or no beard or long beard or short beard or mustache or short hair, long hair, bald hair. Like I don't really care. What I care is that like you're making the decisions based on your behalf. And what I realized is during this beard growing journey that there was a lot of guys who didn't fit the traditional mold of a bearded guy who like didn't know how to talk to their mom about growing a beard or didn't know how to talk to their boss about growing a beard. And I gave them those tools and tips and really wanted to give them the confidence they needed to grow their beard out. And that's where Beardbrand started. We started with a blog and a YouTube channel and a Tumblr page back when Tumblr was relevant, and kind of grew from there. So we did that for about a year, and then I always had this like vision that Beardbrand was going to be this lifestyle company. So it was going to be like wallets and bags and apparel and whatever. But the reality is, I didn't know anything about those industries or how to start them. And I got some beard oil uh, from a manufacturer at that time to kind of talk about it, share it on our Tumblr blog, and then I kind of started selling that because I had that relationship, and that's where Beardbrand started. I was able to bring on my current business partners, Jeremy and Lindsay, and kind of turn the content into um, an e-commerce store.
That's amazing. And so, one thing you're doing is really interesting. You're almost creating a category. Like, I love the book, The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. And like one of the first chapters is around category creation. And you're really kind of leaning into something that maybe is, there's a stereotype to it, but you're like, no, let's like reinvent the way that is viewed. And then you're essentially, they call it now like community is marketing, but you're building this organic following even before you have a product. And so you start to see this idea, you're going towards like beard products, like beard oils. Can you talk about like first, what was that first flagship product? Was it the beard oil? And when did you realize you had something special and you had traction?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I want to set the expectation that the size of our community in that first year was not notable. I think we had like 300 subscribers on um, YouTube, and then like a couple hundred or a couple thousand visits to our blog. So it wasn't like we had built this a massive community, and then we're able to sell to them, which I feel like a lot of people kind of set that expectation. We really did build the community side by side with with the products. And our first products were beard oil and mustache wax is kind of where we started. And we started by working with a third party manufacturer. So or not a third. We started purely as a retailer. We were selling someone else's brand, and then we launched our own brand probably about 5 months in, and then I think it wasn't until in my mind the business grew really rapidly that first year. I think so. We launched January 28th, 2013. We did like $900 in sales that month, and then in February we did like I don't know, like $1,500 or 2,000, and then in March we did like $600, and I thought we were going down to zero. And then April it was like 2,000 again, and May was like 3,000, and then July I think was like 15, and then September was like 25K. And that's when like I've always told myself that, well, if I can get to 25K per month, then I know I can like carve out enough to put food on the table and kind of like put away all my side projects and close those up. And
And sorry
then,
to interrupt. How are
yeah,
you getting, because everybody's interested when you're going from 0 to 1, like, how are you getting those first customers? Is that from your blog? Are you doing ads? Or are you just pounding on doors?
yeah, I mean, so this is 2013. So the strategies in 2013 are probably different than the strategies in 2022. But for me, I was really active on Reddit at the time. And I'm fortunate in the sense that one, I'm not only am I the founder, but I'm also like customer number one. So I was able to kind of speak from it authentically as a product that I enjoyed and I used, and I just you know talked about it. I just talked about it on Reddit. I would post about beards on Reddit Beards. I would post about the business on Reddit Entrepreneur. I would tweet about it. I would make videos. It was just like I was just so passionate about this company. Like I don't think like compared to all the other businesses I've had, like Beardbrand checked all the boxes. Like I wanted to have a beard. I was doing all the design. I was designing the packaging. It was finally a business that I could scale up, that I could generate sales while I was sleeping, which was a big thing for me. I didn't want to trade time for money. And I had great business partners who I just really enjoyed working with. And it was just a ton of fun. So like that first year, I mean, really like the first 5 years of the business was like if I was awake, I was thinking about Beardbrand. Probably much to my family's chagrin, but it was um, nonstop. So when you're thinking about it nonstop, you're talking about it nonstop, you're posting everywhere. I think it was just anything and everything I would do. I would never say no. Like if someone wanted me on a podcast, it wasn't like how many listeners do you have, or how long you've been around, or whatever. It was like, no, yeah, I'll be on your podcast. Like I don't care. Like I just want to talk about it. Like I would talk to like a homeless person on the street and like sell them about it. So it's just like life is just so much more easier when you're super passionate about what you're working on.
That's really good advice. And so you're kind of rolling up your sleeves, getting in these first few customers, and then I've read you've had some like inflection points. When is it going to that next level? Because you've been on Shark Tank, you had some big pieces in New York Times. Like I'd love to hear about that, and even like how did you even get on Shark Tank?
Yeah, so I would say like the first big milestone for us was hiring our first employee, which was I think around October of 2013, and I think we were doing like 50 or 60 thousand dollars a month at that time. By the end of the year, we were up to $1 million run rate. Um,
That's insane growth, by the way. That's pretty good.
Yeah, like, and the one thing that I've learned in entrepreneurship is the minute you think you know what you're doing, life comes back and humbles you. So I could probably attribute a lot of that growth to just kind of being the right product at the right time, to the right message to the right audience. So um, that isn't always the case, but yeah, we had some really nice growth in that first year, which I recognize is not. not normal, and I don't think people should expect that. But it is kind of nice to learn about it. What the question was?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just curious about those inflection points of Shark Tank
Yeah.
and New York Times. Yep.
So we were creating, in my opinion, a new industry. Like beard care had never existed before us. Shaving, of course, had existed in men's grooming, but we were really a new spin on beard care, or a new spin on men's grooming with beard care. And so there's this intense um, rush to want to grow super fast and kind of capture the world before anyone else came in there. And I feel like if I was a more competent entrepreneur, maybe I would have been able to do that. But, we knew that we always had something unique. Everyone would tell me, like, "You should be on Shark Tank, you should be on Shark Tank." So, we applied to be on Shark Tank, and even to the point where we were gonna do one of those casting calls where you wait in line. And then I just heard from the grapevine that, those they're kinda looking for those wacky entrepreneurs that aren't, like, really feasible businesses.
Yeah, more of entertainment value.
Yeah. So, fortunately for us, like our application got seen by someone who's producing it, and they ended up contacting us. And I had experience on YouTube, which was really beneficial to being able to create like uh, a good pitch, for the producers, and that comfort of being on camera. I think is another advantage that I had. So we just went through the process and listened to the producers and took their advice. And of course, they give you full control and autonomy over the decisions that you're going to make. And I felt like I had the full control and autonomy. And then we got to L.A. and we filmed the episode, and that was like in the summer of 2014. And then we aired October 31st, Halloween of 2014. So. Um, yeah, I was just applying for the job and getting lucky that they saw it and replied to us.
That's awesome. And one thing like that has been really interesting with your business in general, we see a lot of these D2C startups that raise huge rounds of funding. You see like, Allbirds, Casper, Warby Parker, but that's man, you raise that money, it's like okay, now you have to 10x that. And you see a lot of horror stories where employees are getting laid off. They have these things called options that aren't really working, even founders not working. But then you have this other path of like the bootstrapped path, which is harder. But like to your point earlier, it's like you can be in control and control that destiny. And you can create a business that, no, it's not $1 billion, but you can pay people really well and have the lifestyle you want. And it's very nice. You haven't raised these big rounds. Can you talk through that thought process of has it been hard to say no to that? Or it was always intentional and that's the way you wanted it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really goes back to our core values, which we've had from the beginning. That wasn't something that came later in the business. Like freedom has always been, a big driver for me and my business partners. And once you take money, you are giving up a fair amount of freedom. And for us, you know, we're not, like our core values aren't Lamborghinis and big houses and flex into your friends. Our core values are freedom, hunger, and trust. And hunger um, can be shown in a lot of different ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean growing to $1 billion company. So it's not hunger at all costs. And trust. Part of trust is like I think like a slower pace growth establishes trust with your customers because you're not dealing with all these like stock out operational issues as you grow too rapidly. And so for us, like our core values, freedom, hunger, and trust, they do really work as a triangle that they hold each other in line. So if you have too much of any of them, you start to erode the other. So you kind of have to work in harmony with them. And bootstrapping is great because the reality is whether you've got millions of dollars in the bank or you've got a couple $1,000s in the bank, all companies have scarce resources. So the in my opinion, the greatest entrepreneurs are those who are really good at allocating those scarce resources to the things that make the biggest impact on the business. And the challenge that these giant mega companies have with all this money is because they have so much money and such high expectations for growth that they start to reallocate those assets, those scarce assets, to things that they should not allocate them towards, because they don't have the same amount of scarcity. So a lot of bootstrap companies are actually at an advantage because they realize if I do something that's not profitable, I'm literally going out of business. Whereas the venture funded companies don't have that gift. I'm going to call it a gift because I really do think it causes you to be a better entrepreneur and to build a stronger, healthier, more sustainable business. And then the trade off is that you no longer um, can you almost have to like let your ego go because you're not going to be on the cover of Inc. magazine or Forbes magazine or the next LeBron James of entrepreneurship. And if you can come to terms with that and realize that, hey, my little 3-bedroom house, two and a half bath house in the suburbs gives me a good life and I have the freedom, then really like you are in control of your destiny. And also if you can focus on enjoying the journey rather than kind of working towards this destination, the journey never ends. But I think what happens for a lot of people who are chasing that destination is when they get there, they realize it's not as good as they want it to be, and they still have a journey left to do, but no purpose anymore.
I love that. Yeah, because we can be obsessed with like growth at all costs, but that can burn you out. And like going to the moon, it's yes, there's fun examples of companies that have done that, but there's so many more that tried that and failed out. Whereas kind of slow and steady playing the long game, it can be much more satisfying. So as you're not raising money, you're like, okay, we're gonna fund this with profits. I don't know if you're thinking of like line of credit. How do you think about that? Because like in transparency, we're looking to launch our own D2C product, right? It's a men's hair product, and we'd sell it for like $30. And I'm like, okay, how many times are they going to replenish this? Is it quarterly? Is it monthly? Maybe we're making 120 or 200 a year from them. Something you've done really well is you've had expansion into other product lines. I don't know if that was intentional to either get your average order value up or to get people coming back. Because once you get people to fall in love with the brand and they trust you, they know that these other products will like serve them well. Can you talk about like your product mix and how that's helped you with growth and helping customers, but also maximizing their LTV?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of those, the vision for the company that we've had for a long period of time is like growing beyond the beard is kind of like internally what we've said, and being able to serve all of all of men's, or I would say the majority of men's kind of basic grooming needs. So like our utility bar, you can use it as a shave soap. You can use our of course the bar soap as a body wash, deodorant to keep you smelling good. Got a cologne, help you smell good. Shampoo, conditioner for your head, hair, beard wash, beard softener for your beard, and beard styling products, hair styling products as well. So that was kind of like the goal was to develop a line of products, and like selfishly, it kind of comes back to my core values, our company's core values, freedom. Like the reality is if you're dependent only on one product, you are kind of at the whims of the market to a certain degree. So if for whatever reason I was wrong and beards went out of style and everyone started shaving again, and I was selling beard oil, like that puts the company at risk. And to a certain degree, like I'm very conservative guy when it comes to financial things. So I don't like having all my eggs in one basket. I recognize like you have quicker and better growth opportunities. Like if all we sold was beard oil, and like we probably could be doing significantly more in beard oil sales than we're doing now. But to me, I just sleep better at night knowing that if something ever happens to this category, we can reallocate our energy and efforts towards another category. So that was kind of like part of it is leaning on that freedom and not being under the whims of things we can't control.
That's really smart. You had to diversify. And, you know, your D2C site, which is brand new, looks awesome, does very well. Like, how did you balance also, like, hey, should you test Amazon? Or Are you guys actively going into wholesale? Is that part of it, or is it strictly D2C?
Yeah, so we've been around for 10 years. This year we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So we've pretty much done everything. We've had international stores. We've sold on Amazon. We've sold into major retailers, and we've sold into specialty retailers as well, independent retailers. So we've done it all. I like I like D2C because it again it goes back to our core values and being able to control the experience that our customers have, and the freedom that we have by maintaining that direct relationship with our customers. We certainly love our retail partners as well, but then you start to depend on your retail partners, and things kind of go outside your control a little bit. And when they're outside your control, I get more anxious and I don't sleep as well. So and the same is true of selling on Amazon. I hear stories all day long of Amazon just like, yeah, you're not doing something right, and cut off. And so I didn't really want to build a business on Amazon, even though it certainly probably would have driven higher revenue. So I think there's like, if you got a theme from this podcast episode about me, it's like I'm willing to make less money to feel better in life. Um,
Yeah, well, it's also, what you can control. Yes, you could probably throw it on Amazon and get a quick hit of sales because I'm sure there's a lot of competitors that like people type in beard brand Amazon, you're not there, and like, oh, there's a competitor and they might get it. But it's also, would you lose that D2C customer that's going to Amazon, and then you lose that relationship and that essence? That's a tough decision to make, right? I don't know the answer, and I see the side for both. And same on the wholesale. It's, yeah, I don't know if that locks up inventory to where it makes it more dependent on them. And as you're running this bootstrap, it's all about balancing all of that. And you've intentionally like gone D2C, and maybe is it strategic bets on those other two, but you're currently not on Amazon anymore, right?
yeah, so we pulled off Amazon, and long story short, I would say that Amazon was cannibalizing our sales. Our business grew when we pulled off Amazon. So,
Wow.
yeah, because I think what was happening is people would shop on Beardbrand, and then they would go to Amazon to buy the product, and then Amazon would suggest, like whatever Chinese made crappy ass hairbrush, and people would buy that. Whereas when they're buying on Beardbrand, we recommend our, like our premium boar's hairbrush, made in Europe, and people would go with that. So like we not only did we have a higher AOV on beardbrand.com. Um, Whereas on Amazon, you're just selling individual products. And now, so like my advice for any listener is if you're really good at building a brand and telling a story, build on your own website, because that's where you can have that competitive advantage over people on Amazon. But if you suck at that, and your skill set is making like an amazing product and or analyzing data, then sell on Amazon, man. You can make a load of money doing that. You don't have to worry about all the freaking headaches of building a brand and like things that don't matter to a majority of shoppers out there. So, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. You just kind of got to lean on the things that you love to do and that you can do for long periods of time, because that's what business is about.
No, that's awesome, man. And you know, one thing that I love to, well, actually we'll go this way first. Like, so if you were starting a brand today or D2C company today, what would be the advice you would give that you would have wanted to give yourself when you were starting out?
Well, I want to sell men's grooming products. I hate to tell you that, Jim, but it's a really hard industry, guys. Because not only are you trying to like educate guys on why they need the product, like the market's just not established, so there's a lot of um, resistance towards premium products. Like just getting them to use a product is the first kind of step, and then so like you're almost like better off to focus on like a lower price point product. But then the market isn't even there, so you're taking a huge risk by going with a lower price product for something that may not exist in the marketplace. And like whereas if you're selling women's beauty products or grooming products, they're familiar with it and they're just like, oh yeah, well, I'll try that. But the problem is you're competing with you know tons and tons of people, and so everything's got its upsides and downsides. I think like Operationally, built in a lot of complexity to our business by having so many different fragrances. You know, pretty much like what our business has been doing is solving all the problems that we created over the first few years. And like we pulled out of Europe and we just focus on the U.S. markets. We're cutting 3 fragrances this year and focusing on just the 3 other fragrances. And we're simplifying our product offering as well to really make sure we're having products that have the biggest impact. Because I would rather have 10 products doing $1 million a year than having 30 products doing $1 million a year, or whatever. So like really finding those products that can make that big impact and have a large enough audience rather than a load of specialty ones. But like everything is like, is your expertise operational excellence, then maybe it makes sense to really niche down and have 100 different SKUs and kind of compete on that marketplace. So you just kind of have to understand where your value is to the world.
Yeah, that sounds like a headache managing that many SKUs, whereas having some quality ones where you could go really deep. And a question I always like to ask people: what is the nicest thing anyone's done for you in your professional career?
I mean, I just feel like one of the coolest thing of going from being a entrepreneur to like a successful entrepreneur is you almost get invited into this exclusive club of other entrepreneurs. Like my friends, some of my friends have done $100 million, in sales, or they've sold their business for 9 figures. And, like to think about, me 15 years ago, I would never be able to be in that same room with that person or have any kind of conversation with them. Of course, I've been able to bring them on my podcast as well, which is a lot of fun. And I feel like like it wasn't an individual thing, but becoming part of that club and going to the conferences and meeting other people and being treated as a peer to those people was for me like one of probably the most impactful things on my life that I feel like really resonated with me. So I don't know if it was one particular thing. And then, of course, my business partners choosing to work with me. I think that was a pretty nice thing of them to do as well.
Yeah, it's so important, and I learned this too late. Like connecting with other business owners or founders just to kind of like experience sharing like, hey, this is hard, here's what I'm going through, are you seeing that? Because sometimes I'll just like stare at my computer and think I have to come up with all the answers, and that can be a little dangerous because I'm definitely not smart enough nor have the experience to pull that off. So that network is very key. How did you go about building that network? Was it just kind of serendipitous over time?
Yeah, I think it was a little the same of building the business. I was really active on Reddit, entrepreneur in the early days. And one of the guys, Peter Keller, he's got a business called French Sport. He's also a Redditor. He's like, hey, man, you should check out Dynamite Circle. And then I checked out Dynamite Circle. And then there's some people that are like, oh, you should check out Andrew Udarian with e-commerce fuel, and kind of checked out those. And those were kind of like in the early days, the first 2 communities that I was really active that aligned, with my same mindset. And it's funny because you mentioned EO, and Peter Keller's been big into EO as well. And I've always kind of like stayed away from EO because my business partners, in my opinion, kind of serve as that function for me. Um, but yeah, just like going to those events and not being afraid to. This is kind of other advice that I wish I knew early on is like whenever you go to the conference, like stay in the hotel of wherever the conference is, stay in the conference hotel, because just like the meetings you have and the that by the elevator or like checking in and whatever, those are the ones that you could find that one piece of advice that pays for the whole trip. And don't go necessarily for the talks or I mean, you can get value out of that, but most of that stuff's available on YouTube anyways, or some kind of remote conference. Where the magic happens is when you go to a conference and you be vulnerable, you talk about the problems you're having, and then you just shut up and listen to how other people would solve it.
That is really good advice. Yeah, I was just at a conference. I hadn't been to one like 2 years, and it was bumping into somebody that said something that, yeah, has changed my business. And it was a 10-minute conversation. That's really good advice. And the vulnerability part, because it's not fun if you go there and everyone's just flexing like, oh, look how great I am. And it's like, I can go on Twitter and get that. You want to have meaningful conversations.
Yeah, and also just your expectation is just one thing. This conference is only one thing because you're going to be overloaded with so many things that you could be doing or should be doing. You're just thinking about what is that like? I paid $1,000 for this conference, or with the hotel and travel $2,000. What is that thing where I can drive $20,000 of sales and make the conference worthwhile? And that's the one thing I want to take away. And then I'll go to a conference down the road and try to figure out something else.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Eric, you've been so generous with your time, man. Where can people find out more about you with Beardbrand or your podcast? Where can we send them?
Yeah, so my podcast is called E-commerce Conversations. It's a very similar structure to this. So if you like this podcast, you may find interest in it if you can get past my Kermit the Frog voice. And then I am the only Eric Bandholz. So if you Google me, you'll find me. But I'm active on Twitter. And then of course, head over to beardbrand.com, buy some stuff, and let me know what the experience is like because we just rolled out that new website. So we're looking for any kind of feedback.
The website is slick on desktop and mobile. We love CRO, so we were nerding out on it. And yeah, if you really are going deep on e-commerce or D2C, Eric's podcast is a must listen. So Eric, dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Shopify Growth Show. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps other Shopify founders like you find the show. Want more Shopify advice? Sign up to the Shopify Growth Insider newsletter by GrowthIt, where we break down the top 5 growth tactics every week. Remember, you're not in this alone. Building a Shopify brand is a grind, but you got this. Keep testing, keep scaling, and don't run out of larges on Black Friday like I did. Have a good one.